and the kids with higher needs require a lot more resources to serve. And so it creates a disproportionate stress on our system. The article also provides some validation on some of the ideas that we've been talking about possibly opening up new specialized programs to better serve our students. They were talking about language, dual immersion language programs, as well as STEAM magnet schools and things like that. So these are all things that we've talked about in the past. But as we start to delve a little bit deeper into the data, I'd like to just cite this article, and you guys probably all got copies of it. If you don't have it, I'm happy to share it. You can also do a Google search the article is called Baby Bust, and it's by the CSBA California Schools magazine. It's in the summer edition. And then with that, we will continue to gather data with our demographic, with a demographer who's working for the redistricting. We'll get a lot of these answers, these questions answered as well.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Member Chima.
Thank you, Member Nishihira, for sharing that information about the demographics. Seeing all those factors you have just mentioned for the declining enrollment, I am glad that our numbers, they are very close to the projected numbers we had. So our staff, I know, especially in the center enrollment office, I think they have improved some of the operation, and our teachers and our other staff, they are also outreaching to our students, so that's good. I just noticed that on our main page on the district side, we now have a calendar of the events, and thank you so much for bringing it up front, and I hope to see many more events listed from the different schools or sites, or even from the district side, so to populate that. August 21st was the first day of the school, so I was able to join at the Leniston Elementary with the kindergarten 3 sections. So kids, they were very happy, parents, they were very happy, they were chit-chatting and were in the programming already in the mode, how to do the things and how to create different groups. So it was a very happy sight, and I was relieved to see that we are moving forward. Thank you.
Member Callis.
Yes, in addition to what has been shared, I'd like to congratulate B. Matters from Pioneer School for receiving the outstanding contribution to literacy. That is a wonderful achievement, so congratulations. Also, if you remember, we created the Budget Committee and the Communication Committee. These are good additions to our to the way we run business, because it invites everyone who has an opportunity to discuss how we do budget and how we could improve communications discuss with the staff and board members, and the public is invited. So it would be nice to have an NHTA representative to these meetings as well, so that you are in the loop regarding what's going on. And again, it's open to the community, so you could come in and join those too. It's just good to be on the same page from the beginning. The Alameda County School Board Association meetings are scheduled for October 17, one on January 30th, but we might change that one because I just found out that the Superintendent Symposium is on that date. So since that might be a Superintendent's Roundtable, we probably change that one to February. And the last one is on May 14. I'm sharing this with my fellow board members because it is so important that you join your fellow board members in the Alameda County so that we are all on the same page, because the topics we'll be presenting are the ones that we received from the surveys that you have turned into us. So we'll do the high priority, high interest topics. So those are again October 17, May 14, and rescheduling January 30th. As you know, there's a lot of concerns about safety in schools, especially after the recent events that were happening around the country. So this is just a wondering right now where we are regarding mental health issues in our district. I know we have pockets of things happening in different areas, but I'm wondering if we have something systemic that is happening or integrated, a curriculum integrated with language arts or with the intervention that are already in place, so that I would like to see us to be proactive and trying to make sure that we address mental health issues before they manifest into a bigger problem. And it's easier to be proactive and have solutions compared to reactive and addressing something that has already happened. So my question again is, where are we? What do we have right now? What will be our next step if it's not systemic? I think this is a ongoing conversation, but I just want to keep on bringing it out there. Regarding the Budget Advisory Committee, the first meeting is on September 19 here. And again, like to invite the community to come and be part of it so we could understand how budget is set. And I think the Communication Advisory Committee is on September 26th. Is that correct?
That's right. I was going to cover that in the committee the committee readouts.
Okay.
Item on that.
All right. Okay. That would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Canlis. For me, I just want to welcome our 2 students. I know it's intimidating and scary to be here on the first day, but you guys are both doing phenomenal. And I would like to extend, we don't really get to spend a whole lot of time with each other, just so you guys know. And that was something that was shared in the past by 2 of the student board members. And I had personally extended an invitation to meet with them outside for coffee or lunch or whatever is easiest for you guys. Whether it's to talk about, personal issues, academics, or how to even do things here. So I would like to extend the same courtesy to both of you guys, and welcome aboard. I think it's going to be a fun, good year, and you guys will have a lot to contribute and a lot to learn. So welcome.
Very exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
So I would like to join you for the invitation to join. Anytime, call us, and we will love to meet with you in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Dr. Thompson.
Okay, well, the big question this time of year is always about enrollment, and to address the declining enrollment issues. Final numbers aren't in, but it looks like we were projected to be down 300 students from last year, and it looks like we're pretty close to being down 300 students from last year. So the good news is that that's what the budget was built on. The bad news is it appears that we're still declining. Not a surprise, though. So there's that. We'll have firmer numbers later in the month, leading up to CBEDS in early October. Okay, back to school nights. I've been to quite a few, and I agree with Trustee Chima. The feeling in the schools is great. People seem to be moving forward into the school year and enjoying themselves. So that's been fun for me to go check out that at all of our different sites. And the final piece is just a reminder to everybody that I'm in the information gathering stage for what will hopefully be recommendations for district goals. There's a survey on our website that gives you the opportunity to provide us with feedback. It's been sent out to over 15,000 people and all of our employees. So those that are interested in helping move the district in and move us forward, please take time to fill that out. That's all I have to report.
Thank you very much. So with that, moving on to the next section, public comments. Are there any visitors on topics not on the agenda?
We have one on the agenda and one off the agenda.
Okay, let's cover the one not on the agenda first.
This one is Darlene Crittenden and class size and and she's an elementary specialist.
Hello, everybody. I'm Darlene Crittenden. I'm a TK through 5th specialist at Delane Easton, and on Fridays I'm at Pioneer teaching media. So I wanted to talk about the specialist that New Haven has. We have our 7 schools, and at the beginning of the school year, before school even started, we had 2 vacancies for music, one at AES, one at Cyril's. We had 1 media specialist position at Pioneer that was unfilled, and 1 science position at Kitayama. Even though we knew about these positions, we did not fill them. We had no intention on filling them. This is to put us all on the same page, Ms. Canlis, as you stated earlier. We're at the beginning. Let's make sure we're all on the same page here. So at this time, we've had several meetings with the district. I've been in constant contact with Sherry Benefield. who's been in contact with Derek and Scott and we and Tracy about the issues. To this date, as of today, we have listed or posted a .8 science position to fill the position over at Kitayama. That's great. A .4 music position to fill the part of the position at AES. It will suffice because there's also some music teachers that don't have a full load who will travel to make up the difference. And as of today, there was a decision made to fill a .4 media position at Pioneer. I want to say that it's very important that every school site gets the opportunity to enjoy their own specialist to teach the music, the PE, the science, and the media. This helps with the programming at each site. There are several things that each site does in addition to our regular job. For instance, right now is around the time that people do book fairs. Pioneer is in a situation where they don't have a regular media teacher. They have 2 from other sites that they're borrowing 1 day each. And the rest is made up by 5 of us that do not teach media. As I said a minute ago, part of that problem will be resolved once we hire someone to this .4 position for media at Pioneer. That'll be great. That leaves us with approximately 62 prep positions around our 7 schools. This is a great opportunity for New Haven to show that they care about students. Those 62 positions could be easily used by credentialed teachers to teach intervention to students at their site who are the most needy. This is a problem this district has had since I arrived here over 13 years ago. We have students that have a need who are not having their academic needs met. They have deficiencies, but no extra assistance. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker on the topics on the agenda.
Okay, it's Michael Gardner for the unaudited actuals.
And watch out in agendas like my friends are like, no, Michael, you cannot go to the microphone again. I will not make this a habit. My friends are watching. But I did want to talk about the unaudited actuals. I did send an email, just wanted to say it here, and it has to do with the formatting. Form 1 is the part of the unaudited actuals that California actually looks at, and it's just the straight raw data. It's the stuff they draw the numbers from. And in the booklets you have in front of you, it's landscape and it's very easy to read, but for people who are accessing it online, it actually is sideways. And so there's like, yeah, I literally would have to turn my monitor sideways to read Form 1. So I understand how it happened because it's easier to read on paper when it's that way, but online, like there's a debate between Ms. Moreno and I, Brenda, about paper versus computer, and that's a situation where paper again wins, but we do need to know that a lot of people are going to only access it online and they need to be able to read Form 1. So one easy alternative, especially if the document's already been made, I see it's printed for you, is to actually have Form 1 put up separately, which is what Fremont Unified does. So they have their unaudited actual, the 200+ page document with Form 1 somewhere in there. And then they also have a separate document of just the 6 pages of the straight raw data of Form 1. And so that way you can still have the nice landscape when it's printed out, but people who want to see the actual data can go, it's like, oh, here's the Form 1. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next section, board committee reports. We have 10.1 report outs from the Budget and Finance Committee, and these are members Chima and member Candless with member Wong as the alternate. Do you have anything to report out?
I do, but go ahead.
Go ahead, because you already started it, so.
All right. Just, again, I just want to repeat that the first meeting is on September 19th, and you're welcome to attend. And the time is, what time? 4 o'clock.
Okay. Would that be it?
Well, I'm looking forward to it because it really allows us to be able to look at and ask questions and work together and making decisions.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing all the great things that might come out of that committee. Yes, Member Chi?
Yeah, so one of the intent to have this committee is to educate our partners, community members. When we meet, we will be requesting some of the information made available to a layman person, who does not understand budget, and also it will be in the future, and so include the budget calendar and maybe some of the vocabularies, we make them ready so that people, they can learn, we can educate them so that they can read our documents and hopefully suggest some of the improvements. Thank you.
Okay, next item is 10.
Can I add one more thing? I just want to thank Mr. Michael Gardner for sharing that information regarding the hardship in reading it online. Perhaps, I think that's a doable request. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to a 10.2, report out from the Communication and Advocacy Committee. Just a reminder, it consists of Board Member Nishihara and myself with Member Wong as the alternate. Member Nishihara, do you want to take a shot at this?
Yeah. So our first meeting is going to be on 9/26. The governance team has already kind of prepared questions for staff to research in preparation of the meeting related to our current communication tools, things like the purpose, the cost, usage, engagement, who's in charge of it, editorial calendar, those types of things. And in the first meeting, we will settle on the foundations and fundamentals of the committee, things like the statement of purpose, our desired outcomes, guiding principles, and of course, we'll be reviewing the analysis of the data that the staff has collected in preparation. After that, we'll identify some next steps and report out from there.
Thank you.
Oh, time is 4, right?
4?
I got some. Yes.
We'll check.
It'll be in here, and we'll probably have that on our website too, once we
4 to 5:30.
have the information ready.
4 to 5:30.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item, is the action item 11.1, approval of the unaudited actual fiscal, financial report, for fiscal year 2018-19. Ms. Heldman.
Good evening once again. So I prepared a presentation. It's essentially the information that you have in the board packet. I always have trouble with this. I never know where to point.
Back there.
There you go. Okay, I'm not going to read this, but this is the authority that dictates to us the work that needs to be done when we close the books. So we are required by Education Code to do this process. So before I delve into this, this is the 2018-19 unaudited actuals. So it's important to remember that this is simply the close out of the fiscal year, which we just finished, which is 18-19. Now, unlike the other budget updates, which is the budget adoption, the first interim, the second interim, and in some cases, there are actually districts who would have to do a 45-day, which we did last year. And sometimes, depending on the financial situation, there are districts who would have to do a third interim. But different than all of those other ones, this is not based on projection, the same way that the budget adoption and the interim reports are very, very highly based on projection. Of course, it's based on projection based on different factors, like the state, enrollment, ADA. So anyway, I just wanted to preempt that to be clear that this is simply reporting out to you how we did in 18-19 and how we closed the books. So let's look at our general fund. This is concentrating on general fund since that is our operating budget. It is the general fund that keeps our doors open, not the other funds. There are other funds in the district, but those do not help us in our operations. So combined general fund, as you can see, total revenue is over 130 million, and most of that, as expected, in a district like us, comes from state and local taxes, which is now the LCFF, the funding formula that we are in. And then we get some from other state, we get some from other federal funding sources like Title I, Title II, all the titles, those are federals. And then we get some local grants. So as you can see, this is just showing you that the bulk of our revenue in our general fund comes from LCFF, which is comprised of our state revenue and local taxes. Now this is the other side to that equation. This is the combined expenditures. So again, for visual, we're showing what those expenditures are made up of at close of 18-19. So the way that the pie charts are separated is actually in alignment with how we are reported to the state. Every district, this is how we are. They have certain codes. In other words, even if you're a single school district, even if you're in Timbuktu somewhere in California, you have to code something the same way. And therefore, this is how we are reported, and that illustrates where our expenses are. And as you can see, the big areas are involving employee salaries and benefit cost. So you see I inserted a little additional information on the right-hand corner. When we extract just the restricted piece of this, I mentioned earlier that this is combining unrestricted and restricted. 82% of our expenses in restricted are in employee cost, meaning salaries and benefits. When I extract the unrestricted, it's higher, which is 90% of our total expenses are in employee cost, and that's all employees, meaning salaries and statutory benefits and health benefits. So this is the unrestricted portion of it. As you can see, the 90% is showing there. It's important to just extract this because these are the part of general fund that's for general purpose, meaning they're not restricted or slated to programs or certain things like the federal programs, like all the titles. So this is to show you what that looks like. So once we look at the revenue, we look at the expenditure, then we look at what we brought in from prior year and what we set aside that are required, we end up with what our ending balances are and what our reserves are. And this is essentially walking you through that process. So July 1st, which is the same number as when we closed last year, and that's the entire ending balance. So we're starting off with that dollar amount, which is $28 million. In the current year that we closed, we actually spent less than the revenue that we received by about $3.4 million. So we add that in. Gives us the total ending balance. And then we set aside all the required designations, and that includes the state required reserve for economic uncertainties. All of those lumped together are totaling to $28 million, including the undesignated amounts, leaves us the 3% reserve. So in terms of the state requirement, we are meeting that obligation up to that level. So let me go back. So this is all the dollar amounts put together. This kind of separates it and illustrates it between unrestricted and restricted. So there's that total ending balance of $31.8 million. And this is how it's referred to in terms of the state, the way that the state looks as local agencies like us. We are required to designate them based on, I don't want to be too technical about this, but it's based on GASB 54 is how we have to designate that ending balance. So as you can see, we have the unrestricted side, and then we have the restricted side, and most of the restricted side really, a large portion of that is in the Title I area. It's in the federal area. And this is just to show you, there's the $48,000 Trustee Nishihara that you were asking earlier. That's the revolving fund, and we have to set that aside. So we are required to divvy up the ending balance this way according to GASB 54. So, you know, when we were putting this together, there wasn't a whole lot of surprises in terms of what we saw after we finally closed the books, after we've closed every single purchase order in the system, after we've released every single encumbrances in the system. But what I want to point out here, I wonder if this is, oh yeah, there you go. So what this is on a high level, what I'm showing here is that when we, the last data point prior to unaudited actuals, we estimated the ending balance to be 22.6 million. And when we 3 months or 4 months later, we closed the books, that number is the 27.3 million. So the question is, how did we gain 4.6 million? So this slide, we wanted to provide information in terms of how we gained that variance between estimated and unaudited, okay? So it comes from different areas. As you can see, we put the description on what they are. Adding those up is what brought us to what we thought it would be back in April and May to what it actually is 4 or so months later. So I thought this was a very helpful information in terms of the previous slide and how does it look like since there was a variance in 1819. So what I'm providing here are the prior fiscal years from 13-14, 14-15, and so on. I went all the way to 13-14 only because LCFF, that was the onset of LCFF. I thought that was a good data point to start with. So these are the two important data points when we're looking at year-end, what we estimated and what is in fact in the unaudited. And here's that variance, and here's that 4.6 million again. So as you can see, this is an anomaly year. We had some unused funding, some savings this past fiscal year. But prior to that, as you can see, we were averaging about 4%. So it's important to know that this number, this needs to be a positive number. If this is not a positive number, then we're doing a bad job in managing our finances, right? We want it to be as close to zero as possible, but definitely we don't want it to be negative. So as you can see, that's the anomaly year. So this is just to provide information in terms of the trend on how we are measuring that. So the one thing that's not included in this, the state report for our year-end and audited actuals is a multi-year. Unlike when we have to do budget adoption, first interim and second interim, and maybe sometimes third interim, a multi-year projection is required, and in fact, it's included. So this one, as I said earlier before my presentation, this is simply a report out of the actual numbers for 1819. We are, just like most districts, we are on what is called a modified accrual basis. What that means is I don't need to have the cash for me to recognize a revenue. I don't need to write the check for me to recognize an expense. And that's the accounting part of it. And that's the part that gets audited by the auditors. They will be camping in one office here in the next few weeks to actually look to make sure that we did the way that we were supposed to do it. So I'm showing this because what I've mentioned earlier, we don't have a multi-year projection on this one. There are two key data points that we wait for in the first quarter of the school year. Those would be the September payroll. We usually, especially staff, we look at that because everything is based on projection in adopted budget. I almost dropped it. And then we're also looking at our CalPads. In October is when we count our students. So at that time, those two key data points and other things will be driving what the updated multi-year projection would be, which would be presented to you at first interim. So, so as you can see, these are the myriad of steps that we have to do in a budget cycle. We've done, of course, the first one. We adopted that in June. And then the state enacted a budget. We are right now in the unaudited actuals report. So we're waiting for the following key data to drive what the projections would look like and what the revisions to our budget would be for first interim report. And I believe that's the end of the presentation.
Okay. Any questions? Student board members? Member Nishihara?
Yeah, so as a part of this, have we identified and have we solidified the number of the reduction, the number that we're going to have to reduce by March?
Well, I would say, based on what I said earlier, it would be premature to look at that. We have a projection for enrollment, although we're kind of looking like we're going to be close to that. It would be premature to come up with a number to say this would be the reduction without all the pieces of information.
Okay, thanks. And then there was also something that you noted about $500,000 carryover from unused federal funding.
Okay.
Can you tell me what that's about and how does that work?
Sure. Federal is treated very differently than state. They call it deferred revenue. All it means is if we didn't earn it, and by earn, meaning we didn't spend it or obligate it in the year, meaning we got the cash before we spent it, then we cannot count it in that year. We would defer it. It's like a carryover, but just treated differently because it's a federal funding.
Okay,
Would that be it?
that's it for me.
Thank you, Member Chima.
I just want to refresh my memory. It says Union City Family Center, we are spending $470K. So how do we pay for it? Why we are paying for it? My understanding was that it's no cost to us, something like that.
Ms. Chima, are you looking at the board packet?
The presentation you
The
just
presentation?
gave? Yeah.
Okay. So, on
Page
the ending balance
3.
estimated versus unaudited?
Page 3, yes, contributions.
It's a paid contribution to
Total
adult school
expenditures,
and the family center.
It's not on the presentation, is
Page
it?
3.
I think it's on the packet.
It's in your packet.
It's in the packet, it's not on the presentation. So, it's page 3 of the summary, I believe.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
contributions.
So the question was, Ms. Chima, I'm sorry, what was the question on?
Union City Family Center,
Uh-huh.
we are paying 466K.
Okay, so this is addressing the contributions, meaning the general fund is making a contribution to balance these programs. So the cost, if we look at the revenue and the total cost, in order for it to net to zero, the general fund had to put in $470,000 to Union City Family Center.
So my understanding is that we, as a district, are not paying anything to run the Union City Family Center program. Is that true?
Well, part of it is this is actually in our LCAP. So there are investments or action items that are in the LCAP, and this is the item that has to come from the general fund to net zero the program. And maybe it looks like Superintendent
see.
Thompson has something.
The short of it is we pay $470,000 of our general fund money to keep that program running. Just like we do with adult school, $234, and child services, $782,000. And special education, it's just different. But no, it's not cost neutral for us at all.
Okay.
It's not self-sustaining, is that the question?
Yeah.
It's not. We have to put in some money to it from the general fund.
I thought, my understanding was that it will bring some grants, or that's why we contributed it.
Well, they do have some local grants, but it's not enough. Essentially, it's not enough to run the program.
I see.
And
So still there is a
therefore-
cost, and this is the cost.
Yes, to the district.
Okay.
And may I just add something to that, since I also had a question around that too? I understood that prior to it being called Union City Family Center, it was called Kid
Kid
Zone.
Zone, right.
And when it was renamed, it became a bigger umbrella entity that was also run by the city. So I don't know if you had that question, but my question that I also submitted earlier was how, I believe the city is only contributing about $16,000 towards this program, nowhere matched to, or, $470,000. How do we talk to the city and say, you have to pay a little bit more? And even with the grants, are we serving, sure, we're serving the students, but we're also serving the larger
The city,
population of
yes.
the city as well. So at what point do we need to go back to the city and ask them for their contributions for this program? So you may not
Yeah.
have an answer to that now, but I think there was also talking about the
Yeah, yeah.
self-sustainability. What I also understood was that at some point it was going to be self-sustained.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's an MOU at some point that we can dig out and see what that timeline may have been. Because I'm pretty sure, $470,000
That was my
is
understanding,
something
that it will be self-sustained or some kind of grant from the county and the city, and it will not be just the school district.
I can address that a little bit if you like.
Yeah.
Just in general, one of the things I'm looking at is every program we're making a contribution to, which means any program that is costing our general fund money, we're looking at in a lot of detail. I've met with Nancy George about this and talked about this. I've also met with the city manager and talked about this.
Okay.
And I think this is a matter when we're developing our budget, starting with the Budget and Finance Committee, we're going to be having hard conversations
Okay,
about all of the programs we encroach on.
thank you,
So that will be part of it moving forward.
thank you.
Thank you. Would that be it, Member
Yeah.
Shima? Okay, Member
Thank you.
Canlis?
Okay, I'm not quite sure how to ask this question. Okay, so we have on the unaudited, the 4 million. And then we have a deficit of approximately 5 million. So I guess my question is this money already in a way, not designated, but are there expenses that are results of other events that would be pulling this money, and it's not really, in the end of the day, it's not really extra, but when you close the books, that's where the number was. So I'm not clear.
So I want to make sure I understand the question. You're asking about, we have the ending balance, the full ending balance. We put all the required designations out, and then we have the net result from that. And what is that money for? Is that the question?
At the end of the day, yes, it's there.
Well, I started my presentation by saying this is a report out of a single fiscal year. Now, we all know that the funding formula that we are under was fully funded in 1819. Even though we build in realistically and practically a decline in enrollment in our 3-year projection, which is 300 less each year, based on what that would be, in other words, if we lose fewer than 300, it's good news for us. If we lose more than 300, it's bad news for us. And that amount, that line item would actually, would help us offset the fact that there's no new revenue. Whatever COLA that we may get would be negated by our loss in revenue due to enrollment. And therefore, that's what would help us in terms of mitigating the deficit spending that we have. We all know what deficit spending is. We hear it a lot from the letters we get from the county office. When you spend more than what you bring in, you're deficit spending. The fact that the formula has been fully implemented and we are declining, unless something magically happens, there are no reason to believe that we will get new revenues in the future out years, in the immediate out years. But that's the kind of thing we're waiting for. It's the kind of key data that we're waiting for in order to refine our projections for first interim. But it's helping us offset those factors that we have very little control over.
I understand that part, that declining enrollment could be one possibility. Are there other factors that would be claiming and would be coming from this that this is the balance after you put everything together?
Yes.
But there are expenses that are coming this time that were not there last time. One of them was declining enrollment. Are there other expenses that we did not perceive before when we put the budget together that will affect this so that it's not really 4 million?
Well, when we built our budget or when we update our finances, we put in every piece of information that we know as of that time. Would something change from the last time we did it? possibly. And that's why we have 3 chances throughout a budget cycle to update those. So if we're closing this year and we have 27 million before all the designations, to obligate that to certain things would be very risky, because we still haven't even seen what our enrollment would look like for the current year. We still haven't even have any, hopefully after the demographic study, we will then have a better idea on what the second out year would look like, or the third out year would look like. And all of those different factors would be what we would use to refine those projections.
Okay, thank you. One last question. This number, does it include all the leftovers from unfilled or unencumbered or encumbered expenses that were not used
Yes.
last year? So that means that if those were filled this year, that's the money where it's going to come from,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
So yes, what you're seeing are all the things that were released at close to the books that were not obligated or used in 1819.
That's what I wanted to make sure it's clear, because it's not saying they're really extra, it's just that these are the things that were not spent because they did not spend it by June 30th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think you've addressed a lot of my questions in your presentation, so do you mind emailing us that presentation so we can have particularly the slide of the breakdown? And my other question, part of it was already answered when we discussed the Union City Family Center, but on the same slide, you had the other program that we're contributing, and that's the adult school. And this was something that I had asked earlier was, are there any requirements or laws around what the cap might be when you're using K-12 funding to fund non-K-12 sources? So in this case, the adult school.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a cap, but what happens in adult school, and there may be programmatic areas that I may not be able to address, and we'll have to get back with you. But in terms of the funding sources of adult school, some portion of it comes from what's called the Workforce Investment Act. It's a federal funding source. Those federal funding sources require a cash match. It's a certain percentage. So for us to be able to continue getting those federal Workforce Investment Act, we have to put in our own cash at a certain level. But in terms of a cap, I am not aware of any cap or any requirement other than what's required by the Workforce Investment Act.
Okay, and then just to follow up on that is, maybe, I'm sure, or maybe you have that answer off the top of your head, but if you don't, will you share the number of students that are enrolled in the adult school and what the history might be in the past couple of years? Are we declining there? Are we, enrolling a higher than usual amount of numbers? So what that looks like and what that in terms of the ratio with staff there as well.
Okay, we'll prepare that.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. And that is all I have actually. So, and you've done a good job of presenting that information to us. So thank you.
Can I ask one question related to what you just asked about
Sure.
the adult school? In the past, didn't they get that mainly funded from various grants?
So they have the consortium, the Pathways
Right.
Consortium. It's a state-funded, it's also a grant. So we have the federals, and then we have the consortium, and then we have a second piece to that consortium that we are the lead on it. So yes,
We, meaning the district, have increased the contribution to that because the consortium had decreased their contribution?
I'm not really sure, but to answer the main question is that the funding, the sources of funds for adult school are the Workforce Investment Act, the Pathways, or the consortium, and all of that put together, it's not enough to run the program, and therefore general fund has to put in this amount. For 1819, this is the amount.
And is there a recommended or ideal percentage that the district should be providing to the adult school? Is
I
there a
think that's what I was
formula?
asking in the cap, and she says she does not know of one.
I can address that too. Many adult schools are self-funded. There's different ways that programs, there's grants there's district contributions, and then they have revenue generating programs. Our adult school apparently has had difficult creating revenue generating programs, so in order to run it the way they're running it now, we have to contribute to it. We'll have to take, I'm meeting with the adult school principal, I think tomorrow, and we'll be talking about this, but the goal would be to have that program become self-funded.
Self-sustained.
What's an example of a revenue-generated program?
All kinds of different options out there. Certified nursing assistant programs. There's a myriad of them that could be there.
Small courses,
So-
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sharon, so
Yes.
I have one more question here. While we're on the same page, I asked about the Union City Family Center. Now, there is another line, child nutrition services. So that's like $780,000 to $800,000. That was my understanding also, that it's a self-sustained program. I don't know if that's true or not, or how do we handle that?
This is our school, national school lunch program. It hasn't self-sustained in the last
has
couple
been?
of years. It has not
But it's
self-sustained.
supposed to be, I think, I remember it was self-sustained before.
Many years ago,
Yeah.
it actually was on the positive, but it hasn't been that way.
So what changed?
The operations, and it's another, oh, there you go.
Yeah, I can address that one too. Again, I'm going to be looking at all programs that we're encroaching on. This one, I'm in conversations with an outside agency to come audit it, because it's $750,000
Yeah.
that we are contributing to a program that can be, under ideal circumstances, self-funding. So we'll
Yeah.
be looking at that in detail. It's likely I'll be bringing to the board at the end of the month or at the beginning of October a contract for an outside auditing agency to come and review all of all that program in its entirety. This is what I was talking about. We're going to have to look at all of these programs.
Yeah, because I do remember that it was generating some small income as well. I mean, being self-sustained is good enough. You're not looking for the income from the, okay, thank you. Thank you for the update.
All right, if no other further questions, may I have a motion and a second to approve of unaudited actual financial report for fiscal year 2018-19?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda items. Are there any items that members have questions, would like to have clarification, or pulled for separate votes? Member Nishihara?
No, none for me.
Member Chima?
No.
Member Canlis?
None.
Okay. Well, that being said, may I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 12.1 to 12.13?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Since we have nothing pulled, number 13 is invalid, or we don't have anything to take action on that. Are there any items from the board that we would like to have requested for staff?
If I can just, if we can actually review what we had, and then we can talk.
Okay, we had
as
two
well.
items that were brought up last time.
We had the bathroom, and Lori, help me if you don't have it, that's okay. We had the bathroom issue, and I think we have a report on that at this point. We had a fixture review done, where we audited there were two components to that. It was the cost of it was basically an audit at Logan of all the bathroom fixtures, and then ideally a cost of what it would replace to upgrade them. And the second piece was a mechanism by which students could notify staff when their bathroom needs service. So we went through and we have conducted the audit of all of the fixtures. We have that. And then the second piece, we have a couple ideas about how we could allow students to, say, use a QR code or text a number at the bathroom and to a centralized point where we could get service. I'm actually meeting with the student council, the ASB student body, I think it's next week, where we'll run a couple ideas by them to get more feedback, so we'll have more to report out there. I think we're at a transition phase on the bathroom fixture piece where we have, and Annette, I don't know if you have the numbers on that to share, but it looks like it would cost a couple $100,000 to upgrade them at the least, well, I think it's at least that much. We haven't costed out each item, but I think it's pretty safe to say that it would cost a couple $100,000 to do that. And to proceed further down that road, we'd probably need to use bond funds for that. So this would be something that when we're going through our bond prioritization process, reviewing that, we could include. But we're a bit at a crossroads, I think, with that, and probably need more staff direction if we want to continue down that road. I don't know if anybody wants to address that.
That was really, really helpful. And so there was one more piece to that, and that was also figuring out adequate staffing, ensuring that we have adequate staffing to be able to respond to calls that, with like a service level agreement of like 15 minutes, so there was staffing, and then there was also that piece, but that was really great.
Thank you. I forgot about that one component. I think we were at the point, and we can clarify later if I'm not correct, but the staffing wasn't necessarily the issue. It was you clean a bathroom and it could 15 minutes later be messed up again. So it was more a matter of the contact. I think we felt like if we had a quicker notification mechanism, we could take care of the issue when they came up. So I think we were okay with the staffing. It's the notification mechanism, and then how do we want to proceed forward with what would almost certainly be a couple $100,000 worth of costs, at least. That's just to replace the fixtures, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very
Does that
much.
include
you.
manpower, the cost that you gave us?
I'm sorry?
Does that include the manpower and the time?
Yeah, that would be
Total
the out-the-door
everything.
cost. We'd probably be
Okay.
looking at bond money to do that, but again, we have, $300 million the bond needs, and not all the money to cover that. So we could throw this in the queue for the bond prioritization process.
Okay.
More immediately, though, I think I think it's much less expensive and much more efficient to put some type of system in
Yeah.
that would really get to the need that students have.
Immediately.
That's most important to them is having a clean bathroom.
Yeah. Clean bathroom, also fully stocked, fully supplied
stocked, yep.
with all the need.
Yeah. I'll be talking to them next week. I'm looking forward to having a conversation about that with the ASB group.
Thank you. Member Shima, you had something to add?
Since we are having 2 meetings tomorrow and day after tomorrow regarding the maps, so did we communicate it to the community how just beyond just the information on our website? Did we
Yeah,
talk
there's
to the
something that was mailed out.
Oh, yeah.
about the,
Yeah, there
yeah,
was
I
a
know I got a card at
Yeah.
home.
There was
too,
a
right,
postcard.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, postcard.
Yeah.
Also.
So what time is that, if you can refresh the memory tomorrow and day after tomorrow?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our
Okay.
second item, what was our second item? It was the,
The
okay.
enrollment at each site.
Okay. Share enrollment by site. Okay, and I think we have that. And so and this one, the school safety, we sent, I don't know if we have the reports that we thought we sent to you last week, and we didn't. So we'll get those to you for your review. Sorry, we thought they were an attachment and they weren't sent. So my mistake on that one. So that's still pending. So I think we have one, they're all pending. So that's where we're at.
Very
for the
well.
Review.
Member Canlis?
New one.
No, okay, go for it.
Okay. So I started talking about this during the items from the board already. I just wanted some kind of update regarding how we're addressing the mental health issues in a systemic way. It's probably a long project because it's integrated with the curriculum and intervention and all those other stuff that are going on, and it's just gonna be done overnight type of thing.
So can you clarify exactly what is it that you're asking of the staff, so that way we can get a
First, we need to know what we have as a mental health program in our district. We need to know what we have. We need to know whether it's working or not working. And if it's not systemic, how do we move ahead to make sure that it's not only available in certain grade, IEI school, but also K to 12. And the last part is regarding how could that be integrated in the curriculum so that it's not extra burden for the people who are implementing it.
I can probably address that, and then we can see if we still need
Yeah, I
a
was going to
consensus
say, there's a
item.
lot of variables to that.
Yeah.
If you can address any of them.
Yes, and I might ask Mr. Pisani to, if I'm getting this wrong, step in. Currently, a big focus of the Ed Services Department will be creating our multi-tiered support system, which is a fully integrated behavioral and academic assistance program, which includes multiple mental health components along the way. But it's designed to be a comprehensive program that addresses mental health needs as needed along the way, from some simple classroom-based strategies, all the way up to as you progress through the tiers of the support system, outside resources and all the way up to whatever counseling support services are there. When it's done well, it's integrated with our cost referral system and other programs such as PBIS. Some of those programs, I don't know if you want to add anything, Mr. Pisani, but I think that probably covers it. So that's a big focus this year that will create systemic supports for kids that includes the behavioral and mental health components along with it. And that work has started last year, it's continuing this year, and it's a huge undertaking. So that'll be going on throughout the year. It started already. And so that is the answer. We could package it up in a different way, but that is the short answer to your question.
Thank you. I have one more.
Does that suffice?
Yeah,
Or
for
do
now,
you
yeah.
still want
yeah.
some more information on that?
I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation
Yes.
because there will be changes and results and implementation of things as we go along. This is just not an issue here in our district, but it actually is a bigger issue around other districts. But that's okay for now.
And what we can, just to add in, what we can do is as we hit milestones along the way, we can, Scott, help me remember we can give the board updates on where we're progressing through that process. And we don't need a consensus item for that. That's something that we were planning on doing anyway.
Thank you. The other question is, we are working on increasing our enrollment, but one of the things I think we need to work on is how welcoming we could be as a district. So again, the question is, maybe we could start a process on how we could make our district a little bit more welcoming so that we could help in increasing our enrollment.
I could, I would, that'll be a focus of the Communication and Advocacy Committee. That'll be something that we address. There's two prongs to that. There's the technical side, and then there's the customer service and outreach side. So I think we'll be addressing that there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do other members have any requests to add? Nope. All right, with no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.